Ghastly Gospels is in association with Blurred.
What's up, guys, and welcome back to Ghastly Gospels. Every week, with tales so twisted, they'll possess you. I am Dr. Kaori Knight, and I am here with my co-host.
Captain Diesel. I like the intro. I like the intro. The intro that was smooth. I like what you did there.
I had to get one for this one.
That was smooth. I'm fucking with it. I think we can run that back. I ain't gonna lie. Not many times do you say things and they grow on me that quickly. I think that's the one. That may be the one.
Look, I have like a whole list. I was like, "Ooh, that's a good one. Let's use that one."
I mean, we can run down the list until we
But
find a better one each episode, I guess, until we find the perfect one.
yeah. Well, today we are talking about possessions,
Ooh.
and I'm actually super excited about this one. Mainly because of the story I have to tell you guys. But I know we're all familiar with possessions, especially if we've seen The Conjuring, dealing with, Ed and Lorraine Warren, um, or just anything, or even if we've seen The Exorcist, or most recently, because I know some people saw The Pope's Exorcist, it's now on Netflix. So we've been dealing with possessions for a long time. So I'm excited for this particular topic, and particularly the one that you picked
Hmm.
for that. But on our last episode, we talked about haunted locations, and honestly, haunted locations can also lead to possessions.
Yes, I think what is it? Because I think they discussed this in The Conjuring, especially. But you had the phases of like infestation, possessions,
Hmm.
and full. I can't remember this. It was a there was a stage of stages,
Hmm.
a list of stages. And I know infestation was one, but full on possession was like the last one. But I forgot that in between level there.
Yeah. Um, and I did too, actually. Honestly, I was about to go. I was watching The Conjuring the other day, and I completely forgot what he said. But yes, whenever you guys hear possessions, a lot of times it is in a location where they've gone to somewhere where it's already haunted and they just decided, or as we know, you can have possessions from objects. So then you have like the whole Annabelle thing.
Hmm.
So possessions are more common than they probably should be.
Honestly, something I hope I never have to deal with ever in my life.
Truly, I was glad that I never had to deal with it. But story time later.
Jesus Christ. Yeah. So I wanted to start off going through mine first. Initially, I was gonna let you go through all three or four positions that you listed or that you did some research on. But doing research into mine in particular and finding out the details of how gruesome this was, I got deeper and deeper into it and put a lot more attention and time into it and was like, hey, let me go first this time around. Let me kick this thing off.
Oh,
But
this
before we
one
get
this one is yours. So you were in the vehicle driving. This one was your idea.
Mhm. So what led me to get to this possession in particular was a movie that is a little bit older, I think at this point, called The Possession. No, I think it was The Exorcism of Emily Rose that a lot of people may be
The
familiar
Exorcism,
with.
yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I remember it's being based on a true story, which I found. And this true story is going to be very, very interesting for everybody. But before we get into it, I want to kind of give you guys some brief information in regards to exorcisms in general, especially as they are pertaining to the Catholic Church, because they are the ones who usually do exorcisms when you see them in movies or in any format, in an official manner. The Catholic Church has to approve them. Usually, in the way that the Catholic Church goes about doing this, is that they take people and they recommend that you go see a doctor or or a psychologist first and foremost because they want to make sure that you don't have any traditional medical issues with you or anything like schizophrenia or anything that is causing the symptoms of a possession before they buckle down and go about giving you an actual exorcism. And exorcisms in general were performed for the most part pre 1960s. Once we get around to the 1960s, the church wasn't performing them as often. We saw that the church honestly was kind of, I think, getting fatigued a lot from the all the horror movies that were coming out, all the media that was coming out during the 60s that were discussing the occult and possession and things of that nature. And a lot of
Mhm.
people were just kind of crying wolf in regards to that. So that you saw the
Right.
church not really like agree to do many exorcisms in the 60s.
Mhm.
But if indeed they thought about doing one, there were a few signs of a possession that you would want to look for before they were to kind of lock in. First and foremost would be a knowledge of foreign languages that you've never heard before. So if Kaori, well, she's not the best example because she knows a million languages, but if I myself if I myself happen to know full Mandarin or full Latin, and I have never been around anybody Mandarin or Chinese or Latin before, and I've never been to those countries that are native to those languages, and I just happen to know them one day and speak them fluently, that's probably a sign of possession. If I have a knowledge of things that I should know, so if I have knowledges of what's going on across the world or anything that's going on with the church, and I've never been there or never consumed any media for there, or a lot of those a lot of those pieces of information were considered a secret, that's also a sign about me being possessed. And last and foremost, extraordinary strength. So this is something that we see a lot in movies. We see the little girl in, Reagan being in The Exorcist, having the strength to throw full grown men across the room, and her herself being very tiny, something of that sort. So these are like three big signs of possession that the church will usually look for. And usually the way it'll go is that the family would contact a pastor or somebody in town that is within a church. The church will then contact a bishop and letting him know of the situation and giving him his breakdown of what he's seeing. And then that bishop would then come evaluate that person that is being accused or at least being suspected of being possessed. And then there from that point on, he will kind of go up the ladder to the Catholic Church and try to get a exorcism approved. But getting into a actual exorcism here, like I mentioned before, this exorcism is the exorcism of Annalise Michel. This is the person that the exorcism of Emily Rose is based upon, and it's very interesting. But to get into the story itself, Annalise was born September 21st in 1952. So this is a little bit of an older one. And she is German. She was born in West Germany. And just to kind of give some information about her, she was a really well-behaved child. She would always help her mom out around the house. She never gave any sass or back talk for the most part. She was the perfect daughter. And she was one of four children that this family had. But the most important thing
Okay.
about her, outside of her, devotion to her family and how kind she was a devout Catholic and really dedicated to her studies. So she was as perfect could be in regards to a child, especially a child in that era. Now,
Mhm.
in 1968, when she was around 16, they noticed her having this kind of episode in school. See, she would be in class and she was staring just dead ahead and was not registering anything else around her. She was in this kind of trance like state here. And when they were able to get her attention and she came to, she had no recollection of what was going on or what was said throughout that entire trance that she was within, which obviously is a kind of a red flag immediately. And if it's me, I'm throwing the whole child away and getting another one. At this point, you got four. You got three good ones, one bad one. You rolled the dice, you lost
Wow,
one.
not a
Let's get,
wonky one. That's
gotta throw this
insane.
child out. Gotta get rid of him before it gets too far along. But as time progressed, as she got a little bit older, these trance-like states would continue and even cause her to do wild stuff like wet the bed. So she would just have them more and more frequently, and they would get a little bit more drastic as time went on. Eventually, they got so bad, to where we believe that they were causes of other things that she was dealing with, like her coming down with tuberculosis and pneumonia. So she got really sick after a while, and she was going in the hospital, and they're trying to figure out what was going on with her. And she recovered at some point soon from the tuberculosis and pneumonia. And then her parents immediately said, "Okay, we need to get you looked at because you've been having these trance-like states for a while now, and they're getting worse. So let's contract a neurologist and let's see what we can find out what's going on here with you." We found out from this neurologist that she was diagnosed with temporal lobe epilepsy. And this type of temporal lobe epilepsy, in particular, it is the cause of things like seizures, loss of memory, and hallucination. So, again, on paper, everything checks out. This should be the thing here. And it was just a matter of, at the time, finding certain medications that would help her combat these things. Now, her getting those medications and her taking them religiously, because again, she's a very disciplined young lady, so she's taking the medicine as she should be. But sadly, they did
Mhm.
not stop the seizures from coming. The seizures continued, and the medications weren't really working. And things started to progress even further because she started to report that she would hear voices say things to her. And she would see devil faces whenever she would start to pray. Now, I guess her parents were just like, you know what? It'll go away at some point. We just won't deal with it. We'll just kind of ignore it. Again, keep in mind this is like the 1950s, so we're probably there's not many options at this point in time. There's only so many specialists you can go see, and only so many advances in technology and medicine that would allow you to take care of somebody like this if she was having some sort of a mental health lapse.
Mhm.
So they kind of let it subside, and they let her continue to go off to college. So she graduated high school, went off to do her thing, and she went to university, and she would continue to have these episodes, and she would continue to have these hallucinations, and these hallucinations started to progress even further because she would continue to see these devil-like faces. But now, on top of that, she would hear voices in her head from these demons that would tell her that she was damned and that she is doomed to go to hell. And she's hearing this
Mhm.
on repeat whenever she's trying to pray. And keep in mind, because she's a devout Catholic, she's praying pretty often. So she's experiencing these episodes very often and hearing these voices. At some point, as you would probably understand, she fell into a deep depression because the medication wasn't working. She's still hearing these voices. She's still seeing these demonic faces. And the thing that, gives her purpose in life and gives her direction, being her religion, she can't really do or practice in peace. Now, this condition that she had was worsening, and she would start to break out into screaming and start having even crazier episodes where she's screaming,
Mhm.
she's ripping off her clothes and running around the house naked. She's hiding underneath beds and tables, screaming, and her family would catch her doing even stranger things like eating bugs or biting the heads off of birds, and even in the most, nasty way, see her wetting herself or wetting the floor like she would do, but they would catch her licking the urine up off of the floor
Oh my
after the fact. So she
god.
is like all the way over the hill at this point. Eventually, the episode started to get more violent, where they weren't just affecting her, but she was starting to get violent towards her family. Up reporting that like one moment she had one of her younger sisters in the room that she picked up like Stone Cold Steve Austin from the 90s and just full on chucked her sister across the room. Keep in
Oh my
mind,
god.
this is a smaller young lady, so this is the kind of an example of that previous supernatural strength that I mentioned earlier. So after a while, the family is starting to realize, like, oh, maybe our daughter is possessed. We should probably get some help from the church, right?
Maybe, maybe,
They then
just
reach out.
maybe.
They then reach out to a priest by the name of Father Ernest Alt. And initially, he didn't really believe that she was dealing with the things she was dealing with. He thought it was the epilepsy, but after seeing the stuff in action, he was like, "Oh no, she possessed. We gotta help her out. We gotta get some help from the church." And he then advocated for an exorcism to take place on her. And eventually, after a while, and after a lot of drastic and frequent testing and having different people look at her, the Catholic Church finally gave the green light for her to do or for her to undergo an exorcism. But it was said that this needed to be kept a secret. And this is something significant that I wanted to kind of point out here. And it's something that the Catholic Church did a lot because I think a lot of movies will kind of warp the image of how these things happen. The Catholic Church did not allow any cameras to be brought into exorcisms from what they say was protection of the person that was undergoing the exorcism, but they kept these things very hush hush. So there's a lot of exorcisms that happened prior to the 60s, and honestly, probably some that still happen today. But for the most part, you're not going to hear about them because the church is very, very, very big on keeping these things a secret when they happen. So you're not going to hear about exorcisms happening in an official capacity by the Catholic Church, more so due to the factor of how this particular exorcism ended. But as I mentioned before, they greenlit the exorcism for Annalise, and it didn't go too well. See, her first exorcism wasn't successful at all. And here's why I'll take a little bit of a pause. And for people that are listening, I'm going to play a snippet of the audio from her first exorcism. And you may be wondering how this audio is leaked because, there's no permission to have cameras there, but we'll get into the details of that later on and I'll give you guys that. But here's the first recording.
Ja, warum? Weil ich liebe den Tag. Nein, ich sag's nicht. Guck nur diese Videos.
Next up, we then have a total of reported 67 exorcisms that took place on Annalise until she ended, so they pretty much gave up at that point, or it seemed like she was cured of whatever she had going on. And out of these 67 exorcisms, she had 1 to 2 performed on her each week, all lasting for up to 4 hours long. So she was just going through these exorcisms on a crazy basis, on a crazy schedule, and undergoing all the worst possible trauma and fears she could undergo. And while this is going on, they're also noticing that her body's reacting differently to different things. Obviously, she can't go near any crucifixes, or she just reacts in a bad way. She can't go near or consume any holy water, or she will, discuss that she will say that her body is on fire and she can't do anything of that sort. So she's just under all kinds of stress throughout this entire time that she's going through these exorcisms. Another crazy thing that you'll notice in her exorcisms, you'll notice that her voice will go from speaking normally, and she'll have this, very gentle, angelic, normal speaking voice from what you would expect from a young lady at that point, to her having this very gravelly, evil sounding, demonic voice that was speaking
Mm,
Latin. And
mhm.
again, this is the language that she had never been exposed to throughout her entire life up until she started speaking this. And here's another little audio clip from this.
Zum Glück.
Wer ist der schuld daran?
Ja.
Ihr.
Ja.
Ja. Was Kostbares, der Rosenkranz. Kostbar. Rosenkranzmonat.
Der Ausklingen bei Stellen nachnimmt. Dem ist das Geld zu schade für.
Der kostet ja was.
Bei dem schon.
Ja.
And eventually, it got to a point to where she was just so tired and so tired of fighting that she had the idea to resort to starving herself. She stopped eating. And this was in an effort reported by her to starve out the demons from her body so that she wouldn't have to worry about them being around anymore. Now, in July 1st of 1967, unfortunately, at the age of 23, she passed away. And this was because she was in a perpetual state of malnutrition and dehydration due to the fact that she was starving all the time because she stopped eating. It was reported that she was weighing only up to 66 pounds at the time of her death. And on top of that, it was reported that her knees were already broken due to her excessively praying. So she was always on her knees trying to pray every day and not eating at the same time, trying to pray these
Mm.
demons out of her body. After her passing, the state prosecutor in their country, they wanted to charge her parents and the 2 priests that were involved in these exorcisms, because they were reporting that, looking at her body, that if she had gone to the hospital even a week before she died, they could have saved her. They could have given her proper treatment to make sure that she didn't pass away. And they wanted to charge the 2 priests and her parents with, oh my gosh, I'm blanking on what they charged her with. They wanted to charge her with negligent, ne
Negligence.
thank you so much.
Ew.
Negligent homicide. Oh my gosh, y'all, I can't read today. They charged with negligent homicide. And the interesting thing here is that while they were going through these court cases, the Catholic Church proceeded to pay for all the lawyer fees that this family and these pastors and these priests needed during this case. And the defense, while they were going through this, they're like, hey, we know that she was possessed, and we all the stuff that y'all talking about doesn't matter because she had demons inside of her, and we'll prove it to you guys. We'll bring you guys the audio tapes that we have on our records and showcase these in the courtroom, which is the main reasoning why these recordings exist out in the ether, because it was official court documents or court evidence that was put out there by the Catholic Church themselves. So this is one of the few instances we have this, because I can't think of too many other ones in an official capacity that were shown as evidence that people have access to hear actual exorcisms taking place. Because again, the Catholic Church is very secretive about this stuff. And within the audio and the court documents that were shown to the jury, you hear her arguing with herself in a way. It sounds like, from the priest's perspective, that she had multiple demons that were arguing with one another within her body. Some of the demons were identifying themselves as Lucifer, Cain from the Bible, from the Cain and Abel story, Judas, the one who betrayed Jesus himself, and even Adolf Hitler himself. So these are all people that were identifying themselves as demons within her body, arguing with one another. Now,
Interesting.
The church got a lot of media backlash because in 1978, the court officially like ruled that yes, you're guilty of negligent homicide of this child, and the parents and the priest took those charges. And as that happened, the church took a lot of media backlash because they were publicly backing this thing. So people were not happy with the Catholic Church. So much so that we saw the church try to do a little bit of cleanup here because the bishops initially that advocated saying that she was indeed possessed and needed these exorcisms later on retracted their statement saying that she wasn't possessed whatsoever. So the church did a lot of cleanup duty on this. And the last bit of information here that I found very interesting that may or may not be connected is that in June 6th, in 2013, the family home where all these exorcisms were held at and where her and her family grew up at was burned to the ground. And people to this day don't understand why that fire started. A lot of people speculate that this was due to the exorcisms, but again, this is so long after the fact that it could have just been natural causes. But it's always fun to speculate. And that is all the information regarding the exorcism of Annalise Michelle, the inspiration for the exorcism of Emily Rose movie. So if you want to see a little bit of what that may have looked like, obviously you can go see the movie because they obviously embellished some things and made some things more hyped up for a cinematic quality. But that was a very interesting story. And something that's pretty sad to me to see, because this young girl was if you could see pictures of what she looked like near the end, and she looked like a skeleton that was bruised and beaten up like she had been through hell for her entire life dealing with these demons for the most part. And we believe in like the perfect world that it was reported by the priest and her family that she was indeed cured of this possession near the end of her life, but by that point she had given her all to fight back. But that's all I have on Annalise Michelle's possession.
That is rough. Honestly, like when people I feel bad like for the parents because the parents did what they could to help because a lot of this stuff is incredibly specific. Um
Mhm.
and I feel like when people are, "Oh, you could have taken her to the hospital." Okay. And what happens when I take her to the hospital and she acts out there?
That is when you throw the whole child away.
Well, you were gonna throw the whole child away anyway, but it's just like you're taking a risk, which actually kind of brings me to one of mine, but it's like you're taking a risk of like having that exposure kind of just out in the air. When I guess just like from like a Wiccan perspective, you wouldn't want to deal with a possession out in the public. It's weird and it's messy and but people try to step in where they don't need to and that's when you get multiple people possessed and or a new person is now possessed and you have to like do the shit all over again.
Mhm. It's really sad, to have this be the case. Obviously, nobody knows if this particular situation was just a issue of her mental health and maybe her family was just hyper religious at that point, because it was so far back then. Obviously, any treatment to deal with what possibly could have been a mass form of schizophrenia was not able to be dealt with back then because doctors,
Mhm.
like I said before, would give her all kinds of CAT scans or all kinds of tests, and they couldn't find any reasoning why she would have the episode she would have outside of the diagnosis they gave her with the frontal lobe epilepsy stuff. Because
Right.
even then, I feel like that was just we had to say she had something because there's nothing to
Yeah, that
explain
was
what
like
you
a
have
here
going on.
damn. I don't know.
Mhm,
I really don't know, so just here.
literally. So it's sad to see, and it's sad to see her pat because you would hope that there'd be a happy ending. We watch all the Conjuring movies, and usually those end in a very happy manner in some instances. But in this one, it was like, nah, she fought and fought until she couldn't fight anymore, and then at the end of the day, it wasn't enough to save her life.
Yeah. Hers is so heavy. So in just like what exactly is your opinion personally on possessions in term and just of possessions, but then also in terms of what she was going through?
It's just tough. Um, Possessions in general, I think for me are a little more difficult when it's involving somebody you care about, obviously. Because if one of my best friends, my loved ones, my dog was possessed by some kind of demonic spirit, it's tough because obviously if you've seen the movies, I'd assume that that demonic spirit would manipulate those relationships you have to
Mhm.
weaken you, and whatnot. Because you already know if it's a baby, hey, throw the whole baby away, throw the
Oh
whole
my
kid
god.
away. But when you're just a grown person or my dog, I'm like, damn, I can't throw it. I can't throw them away.
Not
You know, I got.
or my dog.
I'm not throwing my dog away. I'm sorry. Like, I'm not throwing my dog away. Akamaru, hey, we locked in, man. I'm gonna just have to
Oh
deal
my
with the demonic
god.
dog, I guess, for a little bit.
For a
Um,
little bit, yeah.
yeah, we'll put crucifixes and stuff around his crate and just have him rock out in there for a little bit.
I'm crying.
Um, but it's tough, man. It's tough, and I feel for people that go through this type of situation. Obviously, no one knows how true these things are. I personally, as spiritual and religious, I guess I am to the extent I do believe these things do exist and they have happened to a lot of people. But I also
Mhm,
feel like these are things that happen when people are going through a lot of things and are weakened. Because you hear a lot of that discussion in The Conjuring itself to kind of reference that again for people that may want something to reference. In the first movie, they discuss how infestations are usually like a prerequisite up into a full possession to where the spirit or the demon within the home will do things to try to scare you, to try to weaken your spirit up until the point to where you're able to be possessed. So it's kind of sad because it's usually people that are going through some sort of depression, some sort of grief or loss, or disappointment that are the ones that end up being the people that get possessed. So it's like, damn, you're going from being sad and being weakened from all these things going on in your life, and now you're possessed by a demon now. So boom, it is what it is. You never really hear about people that are in strong mind and spirit being possessed by a demon, unless it's like some kind of crazy movie. But for the most part, it's people that get weakened. Um, I don't know. It's just a sad thing altogether.
yeah, and I think a lot of just, for is with the demons arguing in her body, when you have what is basically an empty vessel, because it's not just your mind that they're after your body too. So we see like the mom getting like beat up and she was being fed upon and things like that in The Conjuring. And it's just like they weaken your body too, which makes it kind of like an easier passage. Please, I have a demon dictionary, so I had to look at this stuff. Um,
Jesus Christ.
shut up. It was a gift, okay? And they do a lot to weaken your body. I do want to cite the Pope's Exorcist, where it wasn't the mom that the demon went after, it was the sister.
Hmm.
And while the sister was like strong-willed, obviously she was, pissed off about them having to move and mad about their dad being dead and mad about like, she had all these emotions everywhere, but her body was still strong, which is why he proceeded to beat her ass in that fucking closet. And then she comes out and she's perfectly fine being possessed after that.
Because he beat her. They didn't even beat her ass in that closet.
Beat
That movie
her
was
ass, and I'm
crazy.
just and they're downstairs outside taking their time. I'm like, "That girl is getting beat to hell upstairs, and y'all looking through journals."
To the white meat. To the white meat, boy. They was tapping that ass.
Oh my god, closet from end to end of the closet, and it wasn't even a big space either. She hit every wall 2 or 3 times. But that's what they do. Like, if they can't break your spirit first because you were, like, strong-willed in the mind, they go after your body, because once your body is done down, then your mind is easier to go through. Having 4 is interesting because how much room you got in there?
Right. And
You
that's
know what
where,
I'm
because
saying?
that's something I only ever hear about in a movie where, again, y'all, we reference a lot of movies because, again, we are horror movie fans. But when I look at something like Insidious, where the
Mhm.
son was like being not fully possessed, but attempted to be possessed by like so many different demons or spirits, it's like I never really hear about multiple entities trying to possess one vessel because it's just so much, especially on a child where they're
Right.
probably not able to handle that much.
Yeah, when they said 4, I'm like, "Are we sure we're not dealing with, like, a schizophrenic demon that just thinks he's 4?"
And the 4 that it chose, it was like, bro, you were Judas, Cain, Hitler, and Lucifer. Like, bro, that's some heavy hitters. You got just like
Hitler was an interesting choice considering she was German.
German, exactly.
So that was a fairly interesting choice, of demon name to go after, because you coulda picked anybody, and it's the fact that she's German, and you're just like, "Oh, hey, Hitler. That's me."
Right. And I think the concerning thing too, because sometimes people you'll look at like, okay, was she pretending? Was she looking for attention? When they reported how thin she got and how what state her knees were in, I'm like, that's a level of conviction I don't think
Commitment.
anybody could like fake. Like your
Yeah.
knees are shattered because you're praying that much and you're withering away to that small of a person. Like,
And it's the fact that she was actively praying still. So it's
mhm,
not like it would be different if she was just like laying in bed letting them argue over her body. It was her actively praying every single day for hours on end that she wasn't being exercised.
it's unfortunate,
So
man.
it is.
What do
Um,
you got on your end
but
though?
that does that does lead me to I whittled it down to two. Um What one because, I still have that story to tell. So I was just like, we can just go down to 2. And 2 because neither one of these are very long and they are very, very old,
Mm,
like super old. So I have Clara Germaina Cele. I want to say that may be how you put. Wow, what are the words?
pronounce?
Pronounce her name.
Got your ass.
Jesus.
That's just it's not just me today.
So she was from South Africa, and she was a 16-year-old schoolgirl when she got possessed. She was born in 1890 and she was possessed in 1906.
Interesting. I feel like we never hear about like African people or people of the diaspora being possessed by demons that often.
And she was baptized as an infant.
Mm,
So, it basically is saying that, like, at the age of 16, she had allegedly made a pact with Satan, and that would have been the cause of her first demonic possession because my girl had two. I'm not sure why you would make two, but not my monkey, not my show. um, she had later revealed the information of the first one to Father Horner Erasmus, and she actually, like, during that first possession, she asked a nun to go get the father so that she could confess, and she did go into confession about crimes that she had no knowledge of and had never committed. She was, of course, able to speak languages to which she had no previous knowledge, which is also interesting because it was German, Polish, French, Norwegian, and several other languages that the nun didn't actually recognize herself. She also demonstrated clairvoyance, by revealing intimate secrets and transgressions of people that she had no contact with whatsoever. And of course, she could not bear the presence of blessed objects. She had, that supernatural strength going on as well. And she was throwing nuns through the room and beating the fuck out of them.
Jesus Christ.
The way I would never be a nun, because if one of y'all gets possessed and starts trying to fight me, I'm
You're
getting a
throwing the
gun.
whole kid away. Throw the whole kid away. Like, how much do you really need this child?
I'm getting a gun. I'm not playing with y'all. Um, and then one of the nuns who was like attending her after they got her calmed down, like after she just had this like super savage bestiality going on, um, she said that she had never heard animals make such noises before. She was like, I've heard lions in East Africa, I've heard angry bulls. They've never made noises like this. I don't even know what this was. She was like, at one point, it just sounded like a hellish beast choir. That's how many noises she was just fucking making.
Oh hell no.
Um, and at one point, she levitated several times actually, levitated 5 feet in the air, sometimes vertically, sometimes horizontally. And then when she was sprinkled with holy water, she just fell out of it and then was normal again. I said, imagine. Because what? Um, and so of course they had two Roman Catholic priests, Reverend Monsueti and the first one that she had confessed to, Reverend Erasmus, and they were appointed to perform an exorcism. And the first one was like a few hours in front of a church of 170 people, which they watched her levitate and then fall out of the possession completely, and she was fine. That was in 1906 on September 11th, right?
Mhm.
A year later, she said she made a second pact. I
Why?
don't know why. I have no clue why you decided to do that, but baby, I need you to relax. That exorcism lasted 2 days, and they were able to, exorcise her, and I believe the demon that she was dealing with was Asmodeus, which is so common. He has nothing else to do. He's so bored.
This is the demon that made an appearance in Late Night the Devil, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
He's so bored. He doesn't have anything to do. So he just goes around possessing people. Um but they were able to get her exercise, and after that she was just completely embarrassed, and she kept asking forgiveness, started doing actual fucking hobbies which didn't include making deals with devils. And she ended up dying in 1912 from heart failure at the age of 22.
I wonder why.
I do. Because girl, what are you doing?
Yeah, I
Willingly
gotta
making 2 packs?
see. As soon as I hear about that second pact, that's where I'm like, "This is a y'all got an orphanage around here, right? We'll just drop this one off and pick up a new one on the way out."
Because
We'll
why would you make a second one after all of the stuff that you went through? Like, you were attacking your friends, the nuns that had been taking care of you. You were, like, hurting yourself, and you were confessing the crimes that you didn't do and shouldn't have any knowledge of. So after all of the thing, and I know possessions hurt like fuck. So after all of the things that you went through, why would you make another one?
Why indeed.
Shut up.
Um, I think this is something I would like to pick your brain at too, really quickly, in regards to what it's like to undergo a possession. I think for the most part, when we see it depicted in films and we hear about it, it's always this painful thing that is like draining your life force. But it seems like in this scenario with a pact being made, there is some sort of like euphoria maybe that was being had from having this demon inside of you that felt good. Because it seems like there's no way you do this pact unless it feels good in some extent to have this power, to have this sense of invulnerability maybe. So I'm curious, like, what do you think it feels like when you're being possessed by an entity?
Well, as someone who has had a friend that was, um, she's crazy. But there is that, that promise of power, that strength that you get, and all of that other nonsense. But it's almost like, remember when we were watching what the hell is that show? American Horror Story Coven?
Mhm.
And she wanted that police officer to drink out of the cup, and she was literally about to like fry his brain if he didn't.
Right.
It's like that, but it's all over your body, because while you do get what you were promised in the pact, they are allowed to do whatever they want to inside of your body.
Like play
So
around
it's
with your heart.
literally, yeah, so it's literally like pain all the time. But whenever you're wanting to do, and that's why I think people also like when they act out and it's like that possession, it's the demons like, "Oh, I want to have fun now. Let me throw some nuns around our fucking room." But then afterwards, like when like they always have that fever, they're always hot, they're always sweating, and just like it takes so much on your body that even if what you have in terms of power feels good, you are still in a shit ton of pain. You're just ignoring it to have a good time.
Mm.
It's
Oh
very
man.
odd.
Never me. Never that. You ain't gonna never brought about me
um,
getting possessed because ain't no way in hell.
the next one is from even earlier, actually. This one is George Lukens from 1788. And he is known as the Yaton Demoniac, actually. Um, basically, he was in Yaton Mendip, which is like a county of Somerset, and he had somebody named Joseph Eastbrook, who was a reverend. Well, he was actually the like Anglican vicar of the Temple Church, come to him on May 31st in 1778. And she was like, "Hey," this lady whose name is Sarah was like, "Hey, I just came across this man named George, and he is a tailor. And he's like really just he's kind of nice, but he's being weird, like as shit." And he's like, "What do you mean?" And she was like, "Well, he was singing and screaming in various sounds that don't resemble human voices."
Nah.
And he went to the doctor, and the doctors could not assist. They couldn't do him any service. So he's singing these random weird creepy songs, and one of the songs he's singing that he made up is the fact that the doctors could do him no service. And
Yeah,
he's the tailor. Like somebody help.
get this man. What's that Uncle Ruckus quote from the Boondocks? Nah, bro. Get that man out. Get that man out of here ASAP.
Right, and the thing was is that she said that he was such a nice person, he was extremely good, like, he was extremely, like, extraordinary good character, attended worship service, he, went, like, had, what the hell? First Sunday,
Mm.
so he participated in that. However, for the past 18 years, he was subject to like all these weird fits. And so of course, that's why he decided to go to the doctor because he's like, this shit is weird. But then the doctor's like, oh, nothing, nothing's wrong with you, actually. You're fine. And then he had got slapped during the Christmas pageant when
Huh?
nobody was he got slapped during a Christmas pageant and nobody was near him to do that.
This demon
I
disrespectful.
said
I
the
ain't gonna
demon
lie.
slapped the the demon slapped the fuck out of this man. During a Christmas pageant?
I said, I'm a pimp named Slickback. Slap backhanded the fuck out of this guy.
And so he was taken under the care of Dr. Smith, who was like a brilliant surgeon, and other physicians who tried to help him. And he stayed for 20 weeks at St. George's Hospital. And they basically, every single one of them, it was like him and several other physicians were like, oh, he's incurable. We don't know what it is. What do you mean? Help me. Like,
Help me. Nigga.
and so basically, like the members of the community started to think that he was bewitched. And then he then said that he had been possessed by 7 demons who could only be driven out by 7 clergymen.
Nah.
Now he never said which ones the demons were, but there was someone who the first reverend that lady had spoken to, Joseph Easterbrook, he contacted some Methodist ministers, um and they all agreed to pray for him. Okay, are y'all going to come help him, or are we just doing prayer in separate locations?
He said, "Hell no, I ain't coming over there." That's like when
So
you in the South and say, "Y'all keeping my prayers." No, no, the hell I am not.
right, like I'm not going to like touch you and pray over you, but I will pray for you in my own home. All right. So they had an account of his exorcism that was published in the Bristol Gazette, and they reported that during his possession, he claimed that he was the devil, made barking noises, sang an inverted Te Deum, which is a Latin Christian hymn that was written possibly in 500 AD, but earlier. So something that he would not just know because that shit is in Latin. And he sang it in reverse.
That's crazy. That's bars right
And
there, boy.
they're right, and then he was, like, incredibly violent, and then, of course, I love these dates, Friday the 13th, June 1970 or 1778, 7 clergymen, including Joseph Easterbrook, went to the vestry at Temple Church where they performed an exorcism, which included hymn singing and prayer. Now, they did say that he was free of all of this, however, people started, saying that it was a hoax of sorts because he very clearly had epilepsy and Vitus's dance syndrome. You're telling me that currently, right now, but when I went to the doctor, they said there was nothing wrong with me.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm,
So
mm-mm.
you're saying that now because you don't wish to believe that that man was possessed. But when that man went and spent 20 weeks at a hospital being tested constantly for 20 weeks, and every single doctor, including the one that personally took him under their care, was like, "No." So
Like
now you wanna tell me
how many tests do you even really have to do, especially at that time period for 20 weeks worth? Like they just running the
20
same test
weeks.
over and over again, or is like you don't have that many tests you can run?
Exactly, and it's just like, we're hoping to get different results from the same test, or like, what tests were you doing? And it and I understand, and this is where I do want to reference to the Pope's exorcist, is the Pope's exorcist in the beginning when they had the first possession that they were dealing with,
Mhm.
where he allegedly put the demon in the pig and then had the pig shot. First of all, that was unnecessary. You ain't have to kill a pig like that.
And boy, Wilbur just like did not make it at all.
Not at all. But when he went to the Cardinals and they were asking him questions about the exorcism he performed, he was like, "It wasn't an exorcism. The guy was mentally ill. He had a TV in his room, so that's how he was hearing the different languages." He was just like, he was definitely mentally ill, and they weren't like, I don't think that they had the medical expertise near the town to be able to tell them that.
Mhm.
But then when the son got possessed, they took him to the doctor, and the doctor is just like, "Oh, mentally, there's nothing wrong with him." What are you talking about?
Like this man is wearing his underwear on his head and speaking Latin. What are you talking about? Like he's
Like, like physically, the son was beaten up from the possession, but mentally, they're like, "Oh, there's nothing wrong with him. Like he has bruises, but like mentally, he's fine."
yeah, I thought they said he was dealing with something with the still dealing with the grief of his father or something like that is what they were contributing
Yeah,
to.
yeah. He was still upset about his dad, and he hadn't talked. But there was nothing that they could do medically for him because except keep him sedated, which is unhelpful. He gonna cry in his sleep.
Keep him high as the sky, man. Work for Snoop Dogg. Go ahead.
Like,
You never hear about
um,
Snoop getting
so
possessed.
So, I it's always interesting, and I like how the Warrens, whenever they were dealing with those um situations with possession, they already know that there's going to be somebody skeptic. They already know it. So they're already prepared for it.
Mhm.
Because there always will be, always.
It's funny seeing them, like, in their actual real life interviews and how people are, like, constantly trying to grill them about it, and they're just like, "Yep, it is what it is, man."
Mhm. Because, I mean, you can only argue with people so many times. You either wanna believe it or you don't. And
You
if you
hear the
don't
same
wanna believe
talking
it, it's
points.
perfectly fine.
Right, you hear the same talking points over and over again.
Yeah. Y'all aren't coming up with anything new, you're not saying anything new, and y'all are just like, we're sitting in the same interview over and over again, and it's just very clear that you don't want to believe that's what happened, so then don't believe that's what happened.
That's tough, man. "Well, let this happen to me, though." Ain't no way, ain't no way.
But with these two possessions in particular, with them being so early, and this one with George Lukens, and they're just like, "Oh, he had epilepsy." Okay, what if he did?
It's funny how epilepsy is, like, the common because I think as the thing
Every
I found funny
time.
is that as we were going through all 3 of our cases, obviously, it's like there's similar things that will pop up, like the super strength, the Latin, the epilepsy is an interesting thing for me where I'm like, "Oh, wow, they're just diagnosing people with epilepsy whenever they're um, not
Sure.
functioning in the yeah, it's just like,
Mhm.
here it is, like, it's epilepsy. It's some form of
Mhm.
epilepsy."
Always, and I'm just like, I understand you wanna put a medical term on it, I understand you want logic to dictate the situation, but sometimes there's no such thing.
Right.
Because in situations like this because what form of epilepsy is having you speak other languages that you have not otherwise heard? Like, you have never come across someone who speaks Portuguese, and you are speaking Portuguese perfectly. Like, what form of epilepsy is giving you that?
The only time I've ever heard about people having a situation like this is when they're going through some kind of very traumatic head trauma. Like they'll be in a car accident or something, and you'll hear them wake up speaking a different language fluently, or they'll wake up with a different accent, possibly. Um, so it's again, it's something that I will not say is not possible to happen. But again, this is people that go through intense, serious head trauma that almost cost them their lives. For you to wake up
Mhm.
with that same thing is like, I don't know.
Yeah, for you to just be like, you're asleep, and then you start feeling your body not becoming yours, and then all of a sudden you're speaking Latin, some shit that you've never heard before, and you're just like, "Huh?" Like, you didn't go anywhere, you didn't do anything, you just lay down, and then you wake up speaking, like, 7 different languages that you've never heard. Like, it is always the ones that are in, like, the small villages or those really small towns where they've never left, and they've never had anybody out of the country or foreign come visit.
Mhm.
So and you're just hearing them speak this language that you yourself and for a fact them, like, they have never heard it. And you're just like, "When did you learn that?"
And this is predating radio or television, so there's not any outside influence you could possibly have.
Right. And, "Oh, it's epilepsy." "What?"
Gots to be.
"What?" I was like, I wouldn't whenever I see someone's possession, like, reading about it, and some doctors like epilepsy, I'm like, "Oh, so you guys do believe in magic?" Because there's no other way to explain why you think epilepsy causes that.
Mhm. Now, with those possessions out the way, you have your own infestation story that I've heard you tell me before, but I need you to tell the audience and just give them an idea of how crazy you and your family are.
Oh my god. Okay. So, I know we've all seen the first Conjuring with the story about Annabelle, and then we've all seen Annabelle, right? Okay. So, I have a doll. Her name is Serena. She's like an old Victorian doll. She's so cute. And she's black, so I keep her. And I got her for I want to say it was like Christmas or my birthday. I can never remember, but my mom bought her from this lady who was having a yard sale. And the lady bought it from Kmart.
Kmart is
So it's not like it
crazy.
was it's not like it was like a family heirloom or anything. The lady, like, it literally still has the Kmart stamp on the bottom of the box. So, my mom gave it to me, of course, and I've had her all the way up and since until up since how old was I? I wanna say I was like 5 or 6, maybe
Too
7.
damn old.
Shut up. And so my brother, the middle child, was getting into making movies and horror movies and things like that. And he did this thing that you can actually find on YouTube. It's really funny. It's called the Nelson Tapes Part 2 Cousins. And you'll actually see her in the video because the entire time that they are filming, he asked me if I would bring her, and I was like, "Yeah, sure." So I'm the one moving her around the house while they are filming. So she ends up in all of the places she shouldn't be ending up in because I'm moving her around. At some point during the filming, I don't know when it was, somebody kicked her box and tore the plastic. And she was not happy about that, apparently. So when I got home, I was like, "Damn, somebody like tore her box." So even if I wanted to sell her, I couldn't get her for a lot of money because her box is tore open and she's a collectible. So when you open the box or damage the box, the money value goes super way down.
Mhm.
So I just had her kept up in my closet. And one day, because I am the only one in the house, literally, I am the only person in the house that eats chocolate covered raisins. And so I was in my room minding my business, eating my chocolate covered raisins, and I got pelted in the head with a chocolate covered raisin. And I'm not really sure what I was thinking, honestly, because I was like, why did my brother just throw a chocolate covered raisin at me? So I got up out of my bed, and one brother was asleep in his bedroom, and the other brother was literally downstairs, headphones on, watching or on the computer. And I was like, okay. So I, of course, went back into my room, continued eating my chocolate covered raisins, and I got hit in the head again with another one. And of course, I'm looking up to see if anybody's at my door, but nobody is. So I just like, and I
Mm-mm.
looked at her, and my closet door is open on the side that she's at. And I was like, I looked at her and I was like, please stop throwing fucking chocolate covered raisins at me. I didn't break your box. So I don't know what the fuck you're mad at me for.
I like how
And that
your
was
your
just
your 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 process of elimination goes from your brothers to immediately the possessed doll, not your parents, but it's like, yeah, this doll's got to be possessed. Stop throwing shit at me.
well, they weren't home. It was literally just the three of us.
Even then,
So
the doll would have been like the last possible thing I could have ever thought about and had thrown that shit at me. I would have
and I
thought my
really
brothers were
just I
lying.
said it as a joke. I literally said it as a joke. And I was like, I looked at her and I was like, I was saying it as a joke because like the youngest makes really loud steps. Like if you're ever around him, his steps are really loud. So even if he had my door was closed, he would have had to open it, which you could hear, throw it at me, and then go to his room, which is literally just next door to mine. But he was knocked the hell out, snoring loud as shit. Like, I even when I checked the first time after the first raisin, I checked to see if he was, like, pretending to be asleep, and that man was knocked out. So, I was like, "Okay, whatever." So, around Christmas time, so that was in October, around Christmas time, I don't know if that was in October, but anyway, around Christmas time, I wanted to put lights up in my room. And I was like, I asked my mom if I could. She's like, I don't care because I didn't think we were going to use all the lights for the Christmas tree. And I took the lights, and of course, you check them before you put them up, and all of the lights were working. At this point in time, she was on the left side of the closet, which is closest to the bedroom door.
Mhm.
So I put the lights up from my bedroom door over the closet and everything. I had my brother come in and help. And we checked all of the light bulbs. All of the lights were working. That's why I just went ahead and put them up. I plugged the lights in, and the left side of the lights are not working. And I was like, "What the hell?" And I look at Kirkland, and he was like, "I thought we checked them." I was like, "We did." So took them down, unplugged them, And then we started checking the bulbs again, making sure that there wasn't one missing, that one didn't get loose while we were putting them up, plug them back in, all of the lights are working. All right, great. So put the lights back up, put them over the closet, turn the lights back on. The left side is still not working. And I'm just like, what the fuck? And so
Nah.
Kirkland's like, I said, you know what? I think we're thinking the same thing. So hold on. Take the lights down again. Turn the lights on. All the lights are working. I moved her over to the right side, closest to the window of the closet, put the lights back up, turn the lights back on. Left side is working, right side is not. Kirkland was like, "Yep, goodbye."
Hey, hey, Kirkland just like he just like me for real. He just like me for
And
real.
Kirkland was like, "Hell no, goodbye." I was like, "Kirkland, oh my god." And so I was just like, "So you're just not gonna let me put any lights up?" I was like, "I didn't break your box, so I don't know what you're mad at me for." So the lights didn't. I took her out of the closet and I kept the lights plugged up because Kirkland left me and I was not about to try to take them lights off the wall. So I just took her out of the closet and put her in on the nightstand by my bed. And miraculously enough, the lights all started working. I was like, "You're such a bitch. I didn't do anything." So one day, or for Christmas, I got a tablet. Brand new tablet. Brand new, completely charged. I was playing with it. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to make a video because nobody's going to believe me when I say this. So I was making the video, had the tablet up on its stand, and I was like explaining everything that happened and talking about the Christmas lights and everything. And I pulled her and I was like, "Well, this is Serena." And in the camera of the video, like you could see that she started frowning on camera. And I literally
Oh.
stopped talking in the middle of the story that I'm telling. And I look at her, but her face is normal. And I'm like, "What the hell?" So when my mom and my dad come home, because I had said something to my mom about the lights, and she was like, "You and your brother are being stupid." Sure. Okay. So when that happened and I had got it or I recorded it, I played it back and I was like, "Oh my fucking god." So when my parents were coming home, I was like, "I need to show you something." And so of course I pulled my dad first because if my dad sees it first, then I know he'll be able to like convince my mom. So I pulled it up and he was like, "What is this?" And so he's listening to the story and I as soon as I pull Serena on screen, the video freezes and the tablet cuts off.
Nah.
And we have never he was like, "What just happened?" I was like, "What just happened?" He was like, "Did you charge it?" It was a literal full charged battery, and we could never get it back on, ever. Ever. I found it actually. I found the tablet and I plugged it in to charge it and it was fully charged. I had it on it for a couple hours. It was fully charged and still never turned back on. Never turned back on. I
Nah.
was like, "Bro, there's no way. No way." He was like, "But that's weird." I was like, "Is it not?" Because like I'm sitting here telling the story. It was literally as soon as I reached over to grab her, as soon as the corner of her box hit that video, it just stopped and turned all the way off.
No, ma'am.
But
No,
I
ma'am.
can't I couldn't throw her away because my mom bought her.
Yeah, you
She
coulda.
has she has lived in all of the houses. Nothing bad has really happened, and I think she got over the fact about the box. And she's currently downstairs in the garage somewhere. I think she's in the corner.
See, everyone, the logical thing the logical thing to do would be, "Hey, creepy possessed doll, multiple pieces of evidence saying that she is creepy, burn it with fire." The Nelson
I
family.
honestly, my
No, we'll just
brother
hold on to
actually
it.
hold on. My brother, when we were leaving, when we were moving out to Vegas, I left first, so I didn't actually get to pack my room. Kirkland and Christopher had to pack my room. When it came time to pack Serena, Kirkland asked mom if he could throw her away, and mom said, "Hell no! That's one of your sister's collectibles." And he was so disappointed and upset. So I was not there to pack her, but when we were unpacking and Kirkland was like, "Your demon doll is in the tub," and I look in one of, like, the tubs that had all of my dolls in there, and there she was, sitting up at the top, and I was like, "Damn, she really made it out here, didn't she?" Well,
Mm-mm.
alright. And we put her in the back, like, Kirkland made sure to put her in the very, very back corner behind all of the comic books. So
I
she
would
cannot be
never.
seen.
I would never go in that garage again. Never in my
Like,
life.
we go and the thing is, like, when we go whenever we go into the garage and, like, because our stuff, me and the boys' stuff is on one side of the garage, and then my parents' stuff is on the other side of the garage, like, with the Christmas decorations and stuff. But I have, like, all of the Halloween decorations because I decorate for Halloween, mom decorates for Christmas. So all of the decorations that I have and all my cosplay stuff is on the side of the garage where she is. And every time, like, we move stuff, I make sure to put it back. Whenever my dad goes into the garage, he's like, "Why do you keep moving boxes and not putting them back?" I'm like, "I did put them back." So I never know if it's I didn't put it back for real or if somebody went in after me or she just down there playing.
Nah, nah,
So
nah, nah.
I just leave her there. Cause somebody was like, "Oh, why don't you go in and open one of your comic book boxes and show us your collection?" I was like, that means I have to go near her, and I really just don't want to."
Oh, now you scared now, huh? You scared to go near it now, huh?
I just
Okay.
don't wanna go. I don't wanna go in there.
Yeah, never in my life will you catch me at your house. If I visit LA, I will find the money to get a hotel before I stay at your house.
You are ridiculous.
Never in my life. I will never.
She doesn't do anything to new people.
I don't care. I'm not risking a damn thing. You will not. Now I'm not stepping foot in your house. You let you let her just
That is
chill.
that is BS because if my mom was cooking you a homemade southern ass dinner, bet you bring your ass in the house.
I know. I'd find a golden corral or some shit so quick before I do that.
There's
Nah,
no
I'm
such thing.
sorry. Find some piggly wiggly. I find somewhere to get some southern food at. I don't
You are
care.
listing all of these southern places that do not exist here.
Somebody cook over there. Somebody got a grandma. Somebody got an auntie.
Don't be so
I'll find
dramatic.
Ju got an auntie somewhere. I ain't risking it, bruh.
Don't be so dramatic. You
No.
know,
No.
that friend of yours was here, and he's, like, way more religious than you are, and he was fine.
Shit. Shit. He had other shit on his mind.
He was fine. He knew she was in there. He was like, "Where's she at?" "Somewhere in the far back corners of the house." I don't fucking know.
And that's how we're different.
Nowhere where she can be seen or anything.
And that's why we're different. He took the risk. I'm not. I'm not, ma'am.
Dramatic, dramatic.
You
Did
call
you
it
have
dramatic.
anything
I call it being
else?
safe.
Did you have anything else?
No, I just this is a fun episode. This was interesting because I think this is something that we especially us having our movie nights we watched a lot. I think more than half the things we watched together have been like possession films to some form or fashion for whatever reason. Um it's just interesting seeing what trends reoccur, what things are remaining the same even throughout different eras of time. Throughout, I think
Mhm,
mine was in the 1960s. Yours took place in the 1700s and the 1800s separately, and they all had very similar stories, similar diagnoses
mhm,
from medical professionals, uh, similar things in the church regards to them retracting statements. I'm so curious as to how many official exorcisms are going on today from the Catholic Church that are kept under hush. And I really think there's even more. I don't know if you ever watched the show called Evil that has Mike Coulter as
mhm.
his
Yeah.
leading role.
Yes, I love that show.
The Catholic Church in that show is like such a shady organization and how they operate and do things. I'm like, this is how I imagine the Catholic Church operating in modern day, where it's like this secret Italian version or Roman version of the FBI who keep things under
Mhm.
wrap and blah blah blah. Blah. Yeah, I feel like there's
But,
a
you know,
lot
the
more
way
of
that
those
they did,
cases.
Angels and Demons is like that too, with Tom Hanks.
Hmm.
That was the sequel to the Da Vinci Code, and it wasn't even it was a Catholic church, but it was also just the Vatican in general. I always think that the Vatican is just, like, this super like, especially with the library that, um, Robert Langdon had to write to, so that he could use it for his book. and they couldn't go like as soon as you get down there you have to go through all of these securities and things like that. But even still, like when the pope and they figured out the pope had been murdered, and it was just like, oh, everybody shut up, we're going to solve this on our own, we're not going to use outside forces, we're going to use this person, we're going to use this. And he's like, and these two people right here, the lady who believes in science and Robert Langdon, like y'all shut up too.
Yeah, you
Like
shut
when the
up.
Cardinals, right, like when the Cardinals that were up for being picked to be the Pope were kidnapped, and then they ended up being murdered in like those public places. It's like the Vatican is just like, shut up, all of you. Everybody shut the fuck up before we steal your children in the middle of the night.
Jesus Christ.
That's what that Vatican City, that's like that Vatican City comic book we talked about last
Mm.
week. That's what that shit reminds me of, because that priest was like, "Oh, they're here for their master." What do you mean? What the hell do you keep under this city?
Yeah, there's some wild shit down there. I know it. I know there's some wild shit down there.
It's worse than Area 51.
Honestly, you're not wrong.
Yes. And it's the fact, and honestly, it's the fact that it's got more security to me than Area 51. I mean, at any point in time, the Vatican can kill you if you're trying to get down into those archives. It's almost just like, but you can take a tour to Area 51, and you just can't, step over the line because they have the snipers sitting on top of the hill. And as soon as you put like your pinky toe over the line that you're not supposed to cross, your ass is dead. But like you can take a tour there. You can't take a tour to the archives.
I
You can
feel
just
like
go to the
they're
Vatican.
I feel like they're even restricted with you like being in the Vatican City at certain times a day.
Yes,
So let
yes,
alone
yes,
you
yes,
going
yes.
inside. Yeah, that's a no go. No go.
Yeah.
Did you have anything else you wanted to cover before we get up out of here?
No, nope, I'm good. Thank you all for listening to our fun nonsense.
Wow. You think so highly of us.
I loved it. I love this already. We've done with like three. This is our third episode. I love doing this. So this is fun.
Yeah, same here. I enjoyed like deep diving on these stories. It's just something that like I spent a lot of time finding on my own and doing research on, either watching a YouTube video, reading an article, whatever it may be. So getting to turn this into some form of content that is outside
Hmm.
of my usual norm. I gotta write a script and do X, Y, and Z. This is fun is to, take some notes and tell spooky stories.
Exactly. But yep, thank you guys again for joining us for Ghastly Gospels. You can find us on Amazon, Apple, Podcast Addict, Spotify, literally everywhere that has podcasts, iHeartRadio, Pandora, and also on the YouTube channel. You'll be able to see like our little visualizer so that you have something to look at because everybody loved those apparently. So,
Hmm.
but thank you guys again, and we will see you guys next Sunday where the Gospels of Terror are delivered directly to your ears.
Ooh, another one. You're on fire with him today. You on fire with him today. All right, y'all. Peace.